Hi, this is Papa G and welcome to Papa Can Cook. Today we're going to be making Italian wedding soup. Now it actually has nothing to do with an Italian wedding and you won't see it served at an Italian wedding. It comes from the Italian for Menastra Maritata, which is a marriage of flavors. And the reason why it's known for that is that it includes the marriage of meats and vegetables together to make the soup. So it's a little complicated. There's two major steps we have to take. First, we have to make the meatballs. These are going to have the little tiny meatballs. If you remember growing up ciccherini soup that Progresso made with the little meatballs, well, this has the little meatballs. The meatballs are basically, I make them the same way I make meatballs that go in the sauce. So it's going to have a blend of beef. I have some grass-fed ground beef, and I have some Italian sausage from Primio, which is gluten-free. You have to check that with the sausage because of the spices they put in. So it's half and half. So it'll be about 1.5 pounds of meat. Then it's going to have some gluten-free breadcrumbs. It's going to have some non-dairy Parmesan cheese, which is actually pretty good. I add a little bit more salt to add the tanginess, the sharpness that you find in regular Parmesan, but it's very good. In something like this, you wouldn't tell the difference. An egg. Non-dairy milk, so I use the almond milk, and that's the meatball. How I'll make the meatballs. So I'll be making those first, and I'll be baking them. It's going to have some chicken. So I have a chicken breast that I bought that I've defrosted, and I'm going to cut that up and put it in the soup. I also have, I don't have it in front of me, but I had made chicken cacciatore recently, and I had cut up a whole chicken. So I have the back of the chicken and the innards. And I'm going to put that in a bag, a cheesecloth bag, and put that in the soup also. Add more flavor. So that's the meats. Then, as far as the soup is concerned, the vegetables will include garlic, onion, carrots, celery, parsnip, parsley, some fresh parsley. So that's the vegetables that go into to make the soup. I'm going to be using chicken broth, again Swanson, which is gluten-free. I'm making a large batch of this soup, so I'm going to be using three quarts of the broth. And then at the end, when the soup has cooked, I'll be putting pasta in, and I'm using ditalini. Usually this recipe traditionally calls for orzo, which is almost like a large, looks like a large grain of rice, but it's pasta. Unfortunately, I couldn't find that gluten-free. This is from La Venetienne, which is the company that I use imported, and it's ditalini, which is the little tiny tubes. So I'll be using that. And then after the soup, by the way, one thing, and I'll mention this again later on, I never put the pasta, some of the recipes tell you to put the pasta in dry into the soup and let it cook until it's done. I never do that. This was something that Marian showed me that I guess she learned from her mother. If you do that, what happens is the pasta soaks up the soup and you end up with less broth in your soup. So I always cook the pasta separately, drain it, and then I put the cooked pasta in the soup. And then when that's done, I've added the pasta, the last thing I do while it's almost ready to be served, and it's still very hot, I'll take a green. In this case, I'm going to use, I have some fresh kale that I got. I'm going to strip the leaves off of the stems. I don't like the woody stems. And then just put that in the soup that has been boiling. You can turn the heat off at that point, and it will wilt, and it makes for a really delicious and nutritious soup. So I'll be back, and we'll get started with the meatballs first. I've taken the ground beef. I took the sausage meat out of its casing, and I have garlic that I've minced and put in here. I have the Parmesan cheese, the cheese substitute, non-dairy Parmesan. I have an egg that I made well and dropped the egg in, and gluten-free Italian breadcrumbs. Oh, and some salt and pepper. So I put that all in, and I'm going to start to mix it. And I'm going to use one hand. That way I keep one hand clean, which I'll need, if nothing else, to turn the water faucet on to clean my hand afterwards. And it's obviously too dry, so what I'm going to do is start adding some milk to it. I do this by feel. You want the meatballs to be soft, but not so soft that they're not going to hold their shape. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep mixing this until everything's incorporated. You don't want to over mix it. I'll add a little more milk as I go along until I get the right consistency. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with saran wrap and put it in the refrigerator. It's a good idea to let it sit in the refrigerator for a couple of hours so it's nice and cool. It also helps the flavors combine. Oh, one other thing that I have in here that I forgot to mention is parsley. I chopped up some parsley and I put that in also. So when that's done, I'll show you what it looks like after I put the meatballs together, and we're going to be baking them. The meat for the meatballs has been sitting in the refrigerator for a little over 2 hours. I'm going to now form the meatballs. I'm using the small end of this melon baller. I have a bowl of cold water next to me, which will help to keep everything from sticking. And basically making about a 3/4 inch diameter meatball. And I'm going to make all these. Meatballs could make close to 90 or 100. And once they're all done, I have the oven preheating at 375. And I got 2 of the baking pans, cookie sheets, lined with parchment paper. I put them in the oven about maybe 15 minutes, then take them out, turn them over, put them back in for another 15 minutes, and then they'll be done. In the meantime, I'm going to get started when they're in the oven with actually making the soup. The meatballs are cooking. They're in the oven being baked. So I'm going to get the soup started. So I have 2 pots going. I have a big soup pot here with about a 1/4 cup of oil. It's heating up. Let me reduce it a bit. I have a frying pan over here with also some olive oil, some light olive oil. I took the chicken breast, I seasoned it, salt and pepper, and cut it up into kind of cubes, whatever. I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to brown it. Before I put the chicken in the soup, I want to brown this. So while that's browning, I now also have the vegetables cut up. I have the onions and the bay leaves. They're going to go in first. And then I've got the celery, the carrots, and the parsnips. And I cut them, some recipes say to chop them fine or whatever. I like the chunks of the vegetables in there. So the onion is chopped fine, but the carrots and the parsnips and the celery are larger chunks. So I'm going to put the onions in first in the soup pot. That's a large soup pot that I'm using because I'm making a lot of soup. Because it's going to be sent out as care packages to some of the family tonight for dinner. Okay, so that's the onion, and I'm also going to put the bay leaves in at the same time. And always remember, when you cook with onions or fry onions, always add the salt with them. With any kind of an almond like onions, garlic, shallot, anything like that, you want to add the onions in because the onions help. The salt adds the salt to it because the salt causes the onions to release moisture and it helps them to caramelize, so they become sweet. So I'm going to lower that a little bit. So this is going to cook. This is going to cook for about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to add the rest of these vegetables and stir it and cook that for another 5 minutes. In the meantime, I've got this chicken browning. When the chicken is browned, I'll turn this off, wait until the vegetables are all in there cooked, and then I can put the chicken stock in here, and I can put the browned pieces of chicken and bring this to a boil and let it cook for at least an hour. By then the meatballs will be done, and I'll be able to take the meatballs and put them in. I'll show you what the meatballs look like just before I do that. And then we'll be ready for the last stage, which is the macaroni, and then the whatever green you're going to use, whether it's escarole, spinach, or kale, which is what I'm using in this for this recipe. And that's it. I'll be back. I've added everything to the soup. The vegetables finished sautéing. I added the browned chicken breast, the chicken parts that were in the bag, and I put in this, for the large amount that I put 3 quarts of chicken stock, 3 of the boxes. I also put half that amount in filtered water. So there was 12 cups of chicken stock, and I added another 6 cups of water. This will cook for a while between the chicken breasts and the chicken parts. It'll taste fantastic. This is one of the trays of meatballs. I'm only going to use one tray, half, and they came out to just 90, I think 91. I'm going to put them in the soup now. The rest of the meatballs, I figured anywhere between 6 and 8 per person. So you don't need to put 100 meatballs in this. That's way too many. But the good thing about these is that what you can do, and what I typically do, is I will take the other tray, I will take those little meatballs, transfer them onto a clean piece of parchment paper, cover it with saran wrap, and put them in the freezer. When they're frozen solid, I'll transfer them to a Ziploc bag, and I'll leave them in the freezer. That way, if you ever make chicken soup again or anything like that, and you want to add those little meatballs in, they're already made. You save some time. I have this. I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'm going to let it simmer. I would say it's going to be close to 2 hours. I'll let it simmer because I want that chicken that I left in there, especially the chicken parts, to add their flavor to the soup. And then I'll be back later on, and all we have to do at that point is put in the pasta and the greens at the end.